Why? My fiancée's bachelorette party livestream showed her lap dancing for random guys. She didn't know I was tagged in the video. I didn't call. Why? Just forwarded it to her very religious grandmother who was paying for the wedding. The wedding got cancelled within hours. Why? It is strange how silence sounds different depending on the context. There is the comfortable silence of a lazy Saturday evening. Why? The kind where the only noise is the hum of the refrigerator and the clicking of controller buttons. Then there is the other kind. Law. Why? The vacuum that forms when the air is sucked out of the room, leaving nothing but a high-pitched ringing in your ears. Why? I was sitting on my beige microfiber couch. Why? The one Sarah had been trying to get me to replace for 6 months, because it clashed with her vision of our future aesthetic. Next to me was Mark. Why? My best man and best friend since the 7th grade. We were 20 minutes into a round of a first-person shooter, losing badly. Why? And laughing about it. The pizza box on the coffee table was empty, and the condensation from my beer bottle had left a ring on the wood. Why? It was a perfect, average night. The kind of night I thought I would be trading in for dinner parties and couples game nights in exactly 3 weeks. Why? 3 weeks. That was the countdown. The finish line of a 4-year marathon. I had the suit fitting scheduled for Tuesday. Why? The final head count for the caterer was due Monday morning. We were locked in. Or at least, I thought we were. Why? My phone sat face up on the cushion between Mark and me. It buzzed once. A short, sharp vibration against the fabric. The screen lit up. Why? Cutting through the dim lighting of the living room. I ignored it. Sarah and her crew had flown out to Miami on Thursday morning. Why? She had texted me when they landed, sending a stream of heart emojis and a photo of the ocean view from their suite. The deal was simple. Why? She would have her last hurrah with her maid of honor and bridesmaids, and I would stay home, save money, and keep out of trouble. I trusted her. Why? I had no reason not to. She was a professional. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, polished and poised. Why? She came from a family that valued appearances above everything else. The phone buzzed again. Then a third time. Why? Mark glanced down between reload animations. He stopped playing. His character stood still on the screen, getting shot by an enemy sniper. Why? But Mark did not react to the game. He was staring at my phone, bro, he said. His voice was flat. I looked over. Why? The notification on the lock screen was from Instagram. It was a tag. Someone I did not follow, a promotional account for a nightclub. Why? Had tagged me in a live video. The preview thumbnail was blurry, a wash of purple and blue strobe lights, but the caption was clear enough. Why? Saturday nights hit different. I picked up the phone. My thumb hovered over the unlock code. I felt a weird prickle of anxiety at the base of my neck. Why? The primitive part of my brain recognizing a predator before my eyes saw it. I unlocked the screen and tapped the notification. Why? The video loaded instantly. The audio was a distorted wall of bass and screaming, typical club noise. The camera was shaky. Why? Panning across a VIP table littered with bottles of Grey Goose and champagne flutes. And there she was. It was Sarah. There was no ambiguity. Why? No grainy footage defense. She was wearing the silver sequined mini dress she had sent me a picture of 3 hours ago, asking if it was too short. Why? In the picture she had been posing in the hotel mirror, smiling sweetly. In the video, she was not smiling sweetly. Why? She was straddling a man I had never seen before. He was sitting in a booth, leaning back with a grin that made my stomach turn over. Why? Sarah was grinding on him, her hands on his shoulders, her head thrown back in laughter. Why? She was moving with a fluidity and enthusiasm that suggested this was not a reluctant participation in a bachelorette dare. She was enjoying it. Why? Mark leaned in, watching over my shoulder. He did not say a word. Why? We watched as she climbed off the first guy and moved to the second one at the table. This one was older, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. Why? He laughed and said something into her ear. She nodded, grabbed the lapels of his jacket, and pulled him close. Then I saw it. Why? The detail that changed everything from a drunken mistake to a transaction. The man in the suit reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash. Why? He slipped it into the neckline of her dress. Sarah did not slap him. She did not pull away. She patted the money, leaned in. Why? And kissed him on the cheek before resuming the dance. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands were cold. Why? I watched the video 10 times in a row. I analyzed it like it was data for a work project. I needed to be sure. Why? I needed to be absolutely certain that what I was seeing was real. It was real. My fiancée. Why? The woman who insisted on premarital counseling. Because she wanted our spiritual foundation to be strong. Why? Was grinding on strangers for tips in a Miami nightclub. I thought about her grandmother. Eleanor. The matriarch who raised Sarah. Why? Eleanor was a Southern Baptist of the old school. Law. Why? A woman who attended church 3 times a week and believed that dancing was a slippery slope to damnation. She was also incredibly wealthy. Why? When we got engaged, Eleanor had offered to pay for the entire wedding. $85,000. It was an insane amount of money. Why? The venue alone was $30,000. The flowers were another 10. Eleanor had one condition. The wedding had to be in her church. Why? Officiated by her pastor, and we had to present ourselves as a couple worthy of the sacrament. She had sat us down in her parlor, served us tea. Why? And told us that she would rather burn her money than spend it on a sham marriage. Sarah had nodded and held my hand, looking Eleanor in the eye. Why? Promising that we shared those values. I looked down at the video again. Why? Sarah was currently accepting a shot of tequila from the first guy, while the second guy kept his hand on her waist. Anger is usually hot. It burns. Why? But I did not feel hot. I felt ice cold. I felt a profound sense of clarity. The woman in that video was not the woman I was going to marry. Why? The woman in that video was a stranger who had been playing a role for 4 years. She had lied to me. She had lied to her family. Why? And she was doing it while spending $85,000 of her grandmother's money on a party to celebrate her own deception. Lie. I could have called her. I could have screamed into the phone. I could have texted her and demanded an explanation. But what was there to explain? Why? The evidence was broadcasting live to the world. I took a screenshot. I captured the exact moment the cash was being tucked into her dress. Why? The image was clear. Her face was visible. The man was visible. The money was visible. I opened my contacts and scrolled down to Grandma Eleanor. Why? I attached the screenshot. I typed a single sentence. I thought you should see this before you finalize the payment for the flowers tomorrow. Why? I hit send. Mark looked at me. His eyes were wide. You did not just do that, he whispered. I did not answer him. Why? I placed the phone back on the cushion, face down. I picked up my controller. I did not want to see the reply. I did not want to hear the ringtone. Why? I knew what was coming. I knew that I had just dropped a nuclear bomb on my own life, on Sarah's life. Why, and on the delicate social ecosystem of her family. I stood up and walked to the door. Where are you going? Mark asked. I am going to bed, I said. Why? Lock the door when you leave. I walked into my bedroom and shut the door. I turned off the ringer on my phone. Then I turned off the vibration. Then, why? After a moment of hesitation, I turned the phone off completely. I placed it on the nightstand. The room was silent. Why? But it was not the comfortable silence of earlier. It was the silence of the deep ocean before a tsunami hits the shore. I lay down in the dark. Why? Staring at the ceiling, and waited for the morning. I knew that when the sun came up, the world I knew would be gone. Why? And for the first time in 4 years, I slept soundly. The sun hits differently when you wake up in a life that no longer exists. Why? I opened my eyes at 9 in the morning on Sunday. For a split second, the muscle memory of my old life kicked in. I thought about making coffee. Why? I thought about texting Sarah to ask if she was hungover. I thought about checking the weather for the wedding weekend. Why? Then I rolled over and saw my phone on the nightstand. It was still powered down. Why? A black slab of glass and plastic that held the detonation codes for my future. The peace of the morning evaporated. I sat up. Why? Rubbed the sleep from my eyes and reached for the device. I held the power button. The Apple logo appeared, a white beacon in the dim room. Why? It took 30 seconds to boot up. When it finally connected to the network, the phone did not just buzz. It convulsed. Why? It vibrated violently against my palm, a continuous, manic spasm of notifications flooding in all at once. Why? It went on, for nearly a full minute before the operating system could even catch up to the backlog of digital panic. Why? I placed it gently on the duvet and watched the numbers climb. 43 missed calls. 89 text messages. 17 voicemails. Why? I did not start with the messages. I started with the call log to understand the blast radius. Why? The first missed call was from Sarah at 2:14 in the morning. Then another at 2:15. Then 6 in a row. Then her maid of honor. Why? Then her mother. Then the venue coordinator. Then the florist. The timeline was brutal and efficient. I had sent the screenshot at 11:30. Why? By 2 in the morning, Eleanor had seen it. By 2:15, she had gone to work. I opened the text thread with Sarah. Why? The last message was the photo of the ocean view she sent on Thursday. Her first text came in 3 hours after I messaged Eleanor. What did you do? Why? That was it. That was the opening salvo. Not an apology, not a denial, just an accusation. I scrolled down. Why? The messages evolved from confusion to panic to unbridled rage. My grandmother just called me screaming, she wrote. She canceled the venue. Why? She called the pastor. She is cutting me off. Pick up the phone. You are ruining my life. You are a psychopath. How could you show her that? Why? It was a joke. We were just dancing. Call her back and tell her you made it up. Tell her it was an old video. I stared at the words. Why? Tell her you made it up. Even in the face of absolute destruction, Sarah's first instinct was to fabricate a new reality. Why? She wanted me to lie to the woman who was funding our lives so she could keep the money. I finally listened to a voicemail. Why? It was from Sarah's mother. Her voice was shrill, cracking with hysteria. You are a vindictive little man, she spat. Why? You could have handled this privately. Do you have any idea how much money we are losing? The deposits are non-refundable. Why? You have embarrassed this family. You need to fix this. I deleted it. I did not listen to the others. Why? I had heard enough to understand the architecture of the disaster. Eleanor had not just pulled the funding. Why? She had systematically dismantled the entire wedding infrastructure in the middle of the night. She had called the vendors personally. Why? She had scorched the earth. A heavy knock on my front door made me jump. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. If it was Sarah, or her father, Why? I was not ready. The knock came again. 2 sharp raps, then a pause, then one more. It was a code. "Come in, Mark," I shouted. The door opened. "Why?" And Mark walked in carrying 2 large coffees and a bag of bagels. He looked like he hadn't slept either. He walked straight to the bedroom. "Why?" Saw me sitting amidst the tangled sheets with my phone in my hand, and set the coffee down on the nightstand. "Is it bad?" he asked. "Why?" I turned the phone screen toward him. He whistled low and long. 89 texts, he said. "That is a new high score." "The venue is gone," I said. "Why?" My voice rasping. "She canceled everything. The florist, the caterer, it is all gone." Mark sat on the edge of the bed and tore open a bagel. "Good." "Why?" he said. He chewed thoughtfully. "You know, I was worried you were going to wake up this morning and try to take it back." "Why?" "I thought you might try to say you were drunk or you overreacted." I shook my head. I looked at the screenshot again. The grin on the guy's face. "Why?" The way Sarah was leaning into him. "I cannot unsee it, Mark." "No, you cannot," he agreed. "And you should not." My phone buzzed in my hand again. "Why?" I flinched. But the name on the screen was not Sarah. It was Eleanor. The room went silent. Mark stopped chewing. I stared at the name. "Why?" This was the woman who terrified her entire family, the woman who controlled the purse strings and the moral compass of the clan. "Why?" I swiped green and put the phone to my ear. "Hello, Eleanor," I said. There was a pause on the other end. "Why?" I could hear the faint ticking of a clock in the background. "Ronald," she said. Her voice was not angry, it was tired. It sounded incredibly old. "Why?" "I am here," I said. "I am sorry," she said. The apology took the wind out of me. I had expected a lecture. Why? I had expected to be yelled at for being the bearer of bad news. "I am sorry you had to see that," she continued. "Law." Why? "And I am sorry for what you are going through today. I know my granddaughter and her mother are likely making your morning difficult." "They are." "Why?" I admit it. "I want you to know something, Ronald." She paused, and I heard the sound of a teacup being set down on a saucer. "Why?" "I raised that girl better than this. Or at least, I thought I did. I called the venue. I lost the deposit." "Why?" "They told me it was non-refundable this close to the date." "I know," I said. "I am sorry about the money." "Do not be," she said sharply. "Why?" "It is $40,000 down the drain." Lie. "But I would rather lose $40,000 than watch you marry someone who does not respect the sanctity of marriage before it even starts." Why? I closed my eyes. I felt a lump form in my throat. In a world of gaslighting and spin, her clarity was overwhelming. "Thank you, Eleanor," I whispered. "Why?" "You are a good man, Ronald," she said. "You have integrity. That is rare. I will pray for you." The line went dead. I lowered the phone. Why? Mark was looking at me with eyebrows raised. "She apologized," I said. "She said she would rather lose the money than let the wedding happen." Mark nodded slowly. "That woman is a gangster." I took a sip of the coffee. It was hot and bitter, and it grounded me. Why? I felt a strange sense of calm settling over the chaos. I was not the villain. I was not the crazy ex-fiancée ruining a party. Why? I was simply the guy who turned on the lights. Then, the front door unlocked. It was not a knock this time. Why? It was the metallic scrape of a key sliding into the tumbler. The heavy deadbolt turned with a clunk. Mark and I looked at each other. Why? I had forgotten to take her key back. The door swung open, hitting the wall with a thud. Sarah stood in the doorway. Why? She was still wearing the same clothes from the flight. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her eyes were red and swollen. Why? And she was holding a suitcase. She looked from Mark to me, her expression shifting from exhaustion to a cold, hard resolve. We need to talk. Why, she said. I looked at Mark. He stood up, crumbling the bagel wrapper. I am going to head out, Mark said. But I will keep my phone on loud. Why? He squeezed my shoulder as he walked past Sarah. She did not even look at him. Why? She just walked into the living room and dropped her suitcase on the floor, the wheels clattering against the hardwood. She stood there. Why? In the apartment I paid for, looking at me like I was the one who had some explaining to do. The door clicked shut behind Mark. Why? And the sound echoed like a gunshot in the small apartment. Then there was silence. The kind of silence that is heavy and suffocating. Why? Filled with the dust of 4 years of memories that were rapidly turning into ash. Why? Sarah did not look like a woman who had just had her wedding canceled. She did not look like a woman who was sorry. She looked annoyed. Why? She looked like someone who had been inconvenienced by a waiter getting her order wrong, not someone whose life had just imploded. Why? She kicked off her heels near the entryway, just like she did every day after work. It was a muscle memory action, a claim to the space. Why? She walked past me, trailing the scent of stale airplane air and expensive floral perfume, and sat down on the beige microfiber couch. Why? She crossed her arms and stared at me. You are unbelievable, she said. I stood by the kitchen island. Why? Keeping the granite countertop between us like a barricade. I did not say anything. I just looked at her. I was looking for the woman I loved. Why? The one who cried during insurance commercials and made soup when I was sick. I could not find her. I only saw the girl in the video. Why? You do not get to do this, she continued, her voice rising. You do not get to just blow up my entire life, and then sit there like a statue. Why? Do you have any idea what you have done? I have done nothing, I said. My voice was calm, which seemed to infuriate her more. I watched a video. Why? I forwarded a video. Everything else was you. She rolled her eyes. It was such a dismissive, teenage gesture that I almost laughed. Why? It was a bachelorette party, Ronald. Do you know what those are for? It is the last night of freedom. Every bride does crazy stuff. It is a tradition. Why? Tradition, I repeated. Is it a tradition to let a stranger put cash in your dress? She threw her hands up. It was $20. It was a joke. Why? The guys were funny, and they bought us champagne. I was just being friendly. You were grinding on them, Sarah. I saw his hands on you. Why? I saw you laughing. That is not being friendly. That is intimacy with a stranger. God, you are so uptight, she groaned. Why? Sinking deeper into the cushions. It is called dancing. People dance at clubs. If you had come with us, you would know that. But no. Why? You stayed home playing video games because you are boring. I stared at her. This was the defense. I was boring. Why? So she had to simulate sex with a man in a suit for $20. The logic was so twisted it was almost impressive. I want you to leave, I said. Why? No, she shot back. Not until we work this out. You embarrassed me in front of my grandmother. You humiliated me in front of my whole family. Why? Do you know what they are saying about me? I imagine they are saying that you were lap dancing for strangers 3 weeks before your wedding, I said. Why? This is not funny, she snapped. I am not laughing, I said. Her face crumbled then. The anger melted away, replaced by a sudden, jagged sob. Why? It was a performance shift, so abrupt it gave me whiplash. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. I love you, she wept. Why? I made one mistake. One tiny mistake. And you are throwing away 4 years because of it. You are throwing away our life. I watched her cry. Why? A week ago, those tears would have broken me. I would have been on my knees beside her, apologizing for whatever I had done to upset her. But now,
Why?
I felt nothing. I felt like a scientist observing a specimen under a microscope. You did not just make a mistake, Sarah, I said. Why? You showed me who you are. I just showed a video to my grandmother, she interrupted, lifting her tear-stained face. You could have come to me. Why? We could have talked about it. We could have deleted it. But no, you went nuclear. You went straight to her. And now she has cut me out of the will. Why? There it was. The truth. It hung in the air between us, shimmering and ugly. She was not crying because she had lost me. Why? She was not crying because she had hurt me. She was crying because the bank vault had slammed shut. Is that what this is about? I asked quietly. Why? The will. It is about our future, she insisted. That money was for us. For our house. For our kids. Why? And you set it on fire because your ego got bruised. My ego, I said. Yes, your fragile male ego. You could not handle me having a little fun. Why? So you destroyed everything. I realized then that there was no point in arguing. We were not speaking the same language. In her world, why? Actions did not have consequences, they only had excuses. In her world, I was the villain for holding up a mirror. I think you should go. Why? I said again. We are not done talking, she said, wiping her eyes. Yeah, we are, I said. I walked to the front door and pulled it open. Why? The hallway light spilled into the apartment, harsh and yellow. She sat there for another minute, staring at me, waiting for me to crack. Why? She was waiting for me to realize that I was being unreasonable, to shut the door and beg for her forgiveness. Why? She was waiting for the script to play out the way it always did. But I did not move. I stood with my hand on the doorknob, my face blank. Finally, why? She let out a huff of disbelief. She grabbed her purse and stood up. She grabbed the handle of her suitcase. She marched to the door. Why? Her heels clicking aggressively on the floor. She stopped in the doorway, inches from me. I could see the smudged mascara around her eyes. Why? I could see the fury radiating off her. You are going to regret this, she hissed. You will never find anyone like me. I looked her in the eye. Why? I looked at the person I had planned to spend the next 50 years with, and I felt a wave of profound relief. That is the hope, I said. She stared at me, her mouth opening slightly in shock. Then she turned and stormed down the hallway. The wheels of her suitcase rumbling like distant thunder. I watched her turn the corner toward the elevator. Why? I waited until I heard the ding of the doors opening and closing. Then, I stepped back inside and closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. Why? I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door and exhaled a breath I felt like I had been holding for 24 hours. I was alone. Why? The apartment was quiet. The wedding was off. The girl was gone. I pushed off the door and walked into the kitchen. I picked up my phone. Why? I had a list of things to do. I needed to call the landlord. I needed to call the jeweler. But first, I needed to make a call to a locksmith. Why? I did not want her key to work ever again. I did not want that version of my life to have access to me anymore. I scrolled through Google. Why? Found a 24-hour service and dialed the number. As the phone rang, I looked around the living room. The beige couch looked different now. Why? It didn't look like a compromise. It just looked like furniture. And for the first time in a long time, the space felt entirely, completely mine. Why? The sound of a drill biting into metal is loud, aggressive, and incredibly satisfying. On Wednesday evening, a man named Dave, why? Who wore a jumpsuit stained with grease and smelled like stale tobacco, knelt in front of my door. He was destroying the old lock. Why? He was drilling out the cylinder that Sarah's key fit into. $150. That was the cost. Why? It was the first check I had written in 4 years that was purely for me. It was not for us. It was not for the wedding. It was for my peace of mind. Why? When Dave handed me the new keys, they were cold and heavy. They felt like armor. I slept better that night. Why? Knowing that nobody could walk in and demand I explain myself in my own living room. But while the physical door was secured, why? The digital one was still wide open. Thursday brought the cavalry. In psychology, they call them flying monkeys. Why? These are the people the narcissist sends to do their dirty work, to guilt, trip the victim back into submission. Sarah had deployed her battalion. Why? It started with her mother, Linda. I was at my desk, trying to focus on a spreadsheet that had started to look like hieroglyphics, when my phone rang. Why? I knew I should not have answered. I knew nothing good could come from that conversation. But a part of me, why, the part that had spent 4 years calling this woman mom at Thanksgiving dinners, felt an obligation. I picked up. Linda did not say hello. Why? You need to fix this, she said. Her voice was trembling, vibrating with a mix of fury and panic. There is nothing to fix, Linda, I said. Why? Do not take that tone with me, she snapped. My daughter is devastated. She has not eaten in 2 days. Why? She is lying in the dark crying because you decided to ruin her life over a little harmless fun. Harmless fun, I repeated. Why? The phrase tasted like bile. Yes, harmless, she yelled. Bachelorette parties are supposed to be wild. That is the point. Why? What happens there stays there. But you had to be a vindictive little man. You had to drag her grandmother into it, because your ego got bruised. Why? I rubbed my temples. The headache was starting behind my left eye. My ego is fine, Linda, I said. Why? My issue is that your daughter was accepting cash from men to grind on them. That is not wild. That is a transaction. You are destroying this family. Why? She screamed. You are selfish. You are cruel. I almost laughed. It was absurd. I was the one sitting in an empty apartment with a cancelled wedding. Why? Yet somehow I was the villain because I refused to be a doormat. I did not destroy anything, I said calmly. Sarah made choices. Law why? I showed someone those choices. The consequences belonged to her. She sputtered, trying to find a new angle of attack. Why? But I did not give her the chance. I ended the call. Then, I blocked her number. It felt like cutting a heavy anchor loose. Why? But Linda was just the opening act. Next came the maid of honor, Jessica. She did not call. She was a texter. Her messages came in rapid-fire bursts. Why? Buzzing against my desk like an angry hornet. You are toxic, she wrote. You are so insecure it is pathetic. She was drunk. Why? She does not even remember half of it. You never deserved her anyway. She was settling for you. I stared at the screen. She was settling. Why? That was the narrative they were building. That I was the lucky one. The reacher, and I should have been grateful that Sarah deigned to marry me. Why? Regardless of what she did in Miami, I typed out a response. I typed, if she was settling, then I did her a favor. Then I deleted it. Why? Engaging with Jessica was like wrestling a pig in mud. You both get dirty, but the pig likes it. I blocked her number too. By Friday afternoon, why? The silence had returned, but it was an exhausted silence. I felt drained. Why? I felt like I had gone 12 rounds in a boxing ring with my hands tied behind my back. I was tired of being the bad guy in their story. Why? I started to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe I was too rigid. Maybe I was a prude. Why? Gaslighting is effective because it makes you question your own eyes. Then, late Friday night, a single text message broke through the noise. Why? It was from a number I did not have saved, but the area code was familiar. Hey Ron, it is Emily. Sarah's cousin. I hesitated. Emily was the quiet one. Why? She was one of the bridesmaids, the one who always stood in the back of photos. I almost blocked her immediately. Why? Expecting another lecture on forgiveness. But the next message bubble appeared. I just wanted to say I am sorry, she wrote. I stared at the phone. Why? I tried to stop her. Emily continued. I told her it was a bad idea. I told her there were cameras. She did not care. Jessica was egging her on. Why? Filming it, laughing about it. But Sarah wanted to do it. I felt terrible watching it happen, and I should have called you that night. Why? I was just scared of the drama. I am sorry. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My shoulders dropped 3 inches. It wasn't an excuse. Why? Her fear didn't change what happened. But for the first time in 5 days, someone from that side of the trench was acknowledging reality. Why? Sarah wasn't a victim of circumstance or alcohol. She was a willing participant. She had been warned, and she had ignored it. Why? Thank you for telling me that, I typed back. It matters, she replied. You are not crazy. I put the phone down. That small. Why? Digital validation was enough to get me through the night. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't toxic. Lie. I was just a man who expected his fiancée not to act single 3 weeks before the wedding. I ordered takeout. Why? I watched a movie I had already seen a dozen times. For the first time all week, the knot in my stomach loosened slightly. But the peace was fragile. Why? Saturday morning arrived with a gray, overcast sky. I was drinking coffee, enjoying the silence of the new locks, when the intercom buzzed. Why? I pressed the button. Yes, delivery for Ronald, a voice said. I buzzed him in. A minute later, a courier was standing at my door. Why? He handed me a thick, stiff envelope. It wasn't a wedding gift. It was legal correspondence. I signed for it. The courier left without a word. Why? I took the envelope into the kitchen and grabbed a knife. I slit the top open. Inside was a heavy stack of paper. Why? Watermarked and dense with legal jargon. At the top, in bold letters, was the letterhead of a law firm I recognized from billboards on the highway. Why? It was a demand letter. Sarah was not done. She had realized that emotional manipulation wasn't working. Why? So she had decided to try and bleed me dry instead. I looked at the number at the bottom of the first page. $8,400. I tossed the letter on the counter next to my coffee. The exhaustion came rushing back, heavier than before. But this time, it was different. Why? This wasn't heartbreak. This was war. And if she wanted to involve lawyers, she was going to find out that I kept receipts for everything. Why? I stared at the demand letter sitting on my kitchen island. It was an impressive piece of fiction. Why? The itemized list included $2,000 for dress alterations, $800 for flight cancellations. Why? And a staggering $5,000 for emotional distress and loss of consortium. Why? That last legal term usually applies to spouses who lose the ability to be intimate due to an accident. Why? Not for women who get caught cheating at their own bachelorette party. The total came to $8,400. Why? Sarah was trying to bill me for the destruction of the wedding. She had detonated. I picked up my phone and called Jason. Why? We had gone to law school together, but while I went into corporate compliance, Jason became a shark in family law. He answered on the second ring. Why? Send me a picture, he said, before I could even say hello. I snapped a photo of the letter and texted it to him. Why? I heard him humming on the other end of the line as he read it. Then a loud, barking laugh erupted from the speaker. This is adorable, Jason said. Why? I am glad you are entertained, I replied. I am currently being sued for the price of a used Honda Civic. You are not being sued, Ron. Why? You are being shaken down. This is a demand letter, and a bad one at that. Loss of consortium. You were not even married yet. Why? And wedding expenses are generally considered conditional gifts in this state. Why? If the condition, the marriage, does not happen due to the fault of the recipient, you do not owe her a dime. In fact, legally speaking, she owes you for the ring. I felt the tension in my shoulders loosen. It is amazing what a little expertise does to fear. So what do? I asked. Why? Nothing, Jason said. Well, not nothing. I will write a response. Law. Why? I will remind her counsel that since the engagement ended due to documented infidelity, her claims are frivolous. Why? I will also mention that if she pursues this, we will sue for the return of the engagement ring and legal fees. Why? I will do it for the cost of the stamp. You are a saint, I said. No, I just hate bullies, he replied. Go have a beer. Forget about this. I hung up. Why? Feeling a grim sense of satisfaction. The legal threat was a paper tiger. But as I was pouring that beer, my phone buzzed again. It was Emily. Why, the cousin. My stomach tightened. Her last text had been a lifeline, validating my sanity. I wondered what she wanted now. I unlocked the phone. Why, can we talk? She texted. I stared at the bubbles. Part of me wanted to say no. I wanted to close the blast doors and ride out the fallout alone. Why? But Emily had been the only honest person in that entire family. I owed her that much. Call me, I typed. The phone rang instantly. Hey, Ron, she said. Her voice sounded small, like she was hiding in a closet to make the call. Hey, Emily. Is everything okay? No, not really, she said. Look. Why? I know you are dealing with the lawyers and everything. I heard Aunt Linda screaming about it. But there is something else you need to know. Why? Something that has been eating at me since Miami. I sat down on the bar stool. The beer foam settled in the glass. What is it? Why? It is not about the video, she said. It is about before the video. At dinner that night. I waited. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. Why? Sarah was drinking, Emily continued. She was bragging to the group. She was talking about how the wedding was basically free because of Eleanor. Why? And then she started talking about you. About me. She said. Emily paused, taking a deep breath. She said that once the ring was on her finger. Why? She was set. She said you had good career prospects, and that she was planning to quit her job within a year. She used the word coast. Why? She said she was looking forward to coasting because she had locked down a safe bet. The words hit me harder than the video had. Why? The video was visceral. It was lust and alcohol and bad judgment. But this was calculation. This was a long con. A safe bet. I closed my eyes. Why? I thought about all the times Sarah had asked about my promotion timeline. Why? I thought about how she had pushed for the more expensive apartment because my salary could cover it. I had thought she was ambitious for us. Why? I thought we were building a life together. Turns out I was just the infrastructure. I was the foundation she planned to build her leisure upon. Ron.
Why?
Are you there? Yeah, I said. My voice sounded hollow. I am here. I am sorry, she said again. That actually upset me more than the lap dance. It felt predatory. It was, I said. Thank you for telling me, Emily. I hung up. I did not drink the beer. I poured it down the sink.
Why?
The anger I had felt earlier. The hot, reactive anger of a man betrayed, cooled into something harder. It solidified into a dense, unbreakable resolve. I had spent 4 years trying to be the perfect partner. I had tried to be stable, reliable, and supportive. Why? I had tried to be enough to heal whatever wounds she carried from her parents' divorce. But none of that mattered. To Sarah. Why? I wasn't a person to be loved. I was a retirement plan to be secured. The ghost of my childhood. Why? The fear that I only had value as long as I was useful rose up in the kitchen. But this time, I did not run from it. I looked it in the eye. Why? She wanted a safe bet. Well, she had lost. I walked into the living room and looked at the PlayStation. I looked at the books on the shelf. Why? I looked at the life I had built. It was mine. All of it. And she wasn't going to get a single cent of it. I checked my email. Why? Jason had already sent a draft of the legal response. It was brutal, professional, and final. I hit reply and typed one word. Send. Why? Then I put the phone on silent. The private war was ending. I had won the legal battle, and I had seen the truth behind the curtain. In law, why? I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The private war was ending, but the public one was just beginning. Why? Because, while I was dealing with lawyers and cousins, the internet had been doing what the internet does best. Why? The video had escaped the promotional page. It had migrated to Twitter. And it was starting to pick up speed. The internet is a vast, why? Indifferent ocean, usually content to let you float in obscurity. But occasionally, it decides to turn into a hurricane. Why? And if you are caught in the eye of it, there is nowhere to hide. It started on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after the cancellation. I was back at work. Why? Sitting in my cubicle, trying to care about quarterly compliance reports. My phone was face down on the desk. Why? I had turned off notifications for everything except calls. But the device still seemed to radiate a low, level heat like a piece of uranium. Why? It was Mark who alerted me. He did not text. He sent me a link on our internal messaging system at work. Do not freak out, he typed. Why? But you need to see this. I clicked the link. It opened a Twitter page. The tweet was from a user I did not know. Why? Someone with a generic anime profile picture and a handle like Party God. The caption read, why? When the bride decides the VIP table is more fun than the altar. Hashtag Bachelorette fail. Hashtag Miami. There it was. The video. My video. Why? Or rather, the club's video. Law why? Someone had ripped it from the Instagram livestream before it disappeared and uploaded it to the permanent archive of the internet. Why? It had 14,000 retweets and 30,000 likes. I scrolled through the comments. The internet is not known for its nuance. Why? People were ruthless. They made jokes about her dress. They made jokes about the guy in the suit. They tagged their friends saying, why? If you do this, I am leaving you. I felt a cold pit open in my stomach. When I had forwarded that video to Eleanor. Why? I was trying to stop a marriage based on lies. I was trying to save myself. I had not intended to put Sarah in the stocks in the town square. Why? But the digital age does not care about intent. Once the data is out, it belongs to the mob. I closed the tab. Why? I felt a strange mixture of vindication and guilt. I was vindicated because the world was seeing what I saw. Strangers were validating my reaction. Why? But I felt guilty because I knew Sarah. I knew how much she cared about her image. Why? I knew that for a girl who curated her Instagram feed like a museum exhibit, this was not just embarrassing. It was a death sentence. That afternoon, why? The real, world consequences began to bleed into the digital ones. Emily, the cousin who had become my unwilling informant, why, texted me around 3 o'clock. Did you see it? She asked. I saw it, I replied. It is bad, Ron, she wrote. Someone at her company saw it. Why? They showed it to HR. I stopped typing. Sarah worked in pharmaceutical sales. It is an industry built entirely on trust and relationships. Why? You are walking into doctors' offices, smiling, shaking hands, and convincing medical professionals to trust you with their patients' health. Why? It is a job that requires a veneer of absolute professionalism. A video of you grinding on strangers for cash in a nightclub pierces that veneer. Why? It shatters it. Did she get fired? I asked. No, Emily replied. But they pulled her from the field. They transitioned her to inside sales. Why? She is in a cubicle now. No more company car. No more client dinners. And a significant pay cut. She is devastated. She says it is all your fault. Why? Of course she did. In Sarah's narrative, the camera that filmed her was the weapon, not her own behavior. I was the shooter. Why? Not the one who had pulled the trigger. I put the phone down. Inside sales. It was a demotion that would sting her ego more than her wallet. Why? Though the wallet would hurt too. She had lost the wedding. She had lost the fiancé. Now she had lost the career trajectory she was so proud of. Why? The pillars of the life she had been building were collapsing one by one. I drove home in silence that evening. Why? I was starting to feel like a spectator at a demolition derby. I was watching the car crash, but I was no longer in the driver's seat. Why? When I got to my apartment, my phone rang. It was Eleanor. I sat down on the couch before answering. I took a deep breath. Hello, Eleanor, I said. Why? Ronald, she said. Her voice was crisp, lacking the waver of age that usually crept in when she was tired. Do you have a moment? For you. Always. Why? I said. I wanted to tell you that I went to see my lawyer this morning, she said. My heart skipped a beat. Law. Why? I wondered if the demand letter from Sarah had originated from Eleanor's pressure. Why? I wondered if I was about to be sued by the grandmother instead of the ex-fiancé. Is everything okay? I asked cautiously. Why? Everything is exactly as it should be, she said. I have rewritten my will. I let out a breath. Okay? Sarah is out, Eleanor stated. Plain and simple. Why? I have removed her as a beneficiary entirely. She will not receive the house. She will not receive the trust fund. Why? And she certainly will not be receiving any more handouts from me while I am alive. I stayed silent. The magnitude of that decision was staggering. Why? We were talking about millions of dollars. Why? Sarah had always moved through the world with the confidence of someone who has a safety net woven from gold. Eleanor just cut the ropes. Why? You do not have to tell me this, Eleanor, I said gently. This is family business. You are almost family, Ronald, she said. And frankly, in-law, why? You have shown more character in the last 2 weeks than my granddaughter has shown in 27 years. Why? I wanted you to know because I suspect she will come crying to you. She will try to blame you for this too. She already blames me for the job, I said. Why? I heard about that, Eleanor said. A heavy sigh traveled down the line. It is a shame. She had so much potential. But character is destiny, Ronald. Why? I truly believe that. You cannot hide who you are forever. Eventually the mask slips. Or in this case, it falls off on a live stream. She paused, and the tone of her voice softened. I want to thank you, she said. For what? I asked. For breaking your granddaughter's heart. No, she said firmly. Why? For saving me. I was about to stand up in front of God and my congregation and bless a union that was a lie. Why? I was about to spend nearly $100,000 celebrating a fraud. You saved me from that humiliation. Why? You told me the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. That is worth more than the money. I felt a stinging sensation in my eyes. Why? I had spent so much time feeling like the villain, like the vindictive ex who blew up the world. Why? Hearing her say that, hearing the person who had lost the most money tell me I had done the right thing. lifted a weight off my chest that I hadn't realized I was carrying. Why? I just thought you deserved to know, I said. I did, she agreed. And now I do. And now so does the rest of the world. We said our goodbyes. Why? I hung up the phone and looked around my quiet apartment. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the floor. Why? The financial plan was dead. Sarah had wanted to coast. She had wanted to marry me for security and wait for Eleanor's money to fund her lifestyle. Why? Now, the security was gone. The inheritance was gone. The career was crippled. The safe bet had turned into a total loss. Why? I felt a profound sense of finality. The ties were severed. The grandmother had chosen her side. The company had made its move. Why? The internet had passed its judgment. There was nothing left for Sarah to cling to. And that, I realized with a jolt of anxiety, why? Was exactly what made her dangerous. A person with nothing left to lose is unpredictable. Why? Sarah had been stripped of every layer of protection she had ever known. Her pride, her money, her status, her future. All of it was gone. Why? And in her mind, there was only one person responsible for the theft. I stood up and walked to the window. Why? I looked down at the street 3 stories below. Cars were passing by, people were walking their dogs, life was moving on. Why? But I had a feeling that for me, the storm wasn't quite over. The eye had passed, but the trailing edge was coming. Why? I checked the lock on the front door. It was engaged. The deadbolt was thrown. I was safe. But safety is a feeling, not a fact. 2 hours later, why? As I was heating up leftover pasta for dinner, my phone did not ring. It did not buzz. But my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, sent me a text. Why? There is a girl sitting in the hallway outside your door, she wrote. She is crying, and she looks very upset. Do you want me to call the police? Why? I stared at the screen. She was here. She couldn't get in. She couldn't yell at me in my living room. She couldn't demand I fix it. Why? So she was staging a sit-in. I texted Mrs. Higgins back. No police yet. Just let her be. But please let me know if she does anything else. Why? I turned off the stove. I lost my appetite. I walked to the front door and looked through the peephole. Why? The hallway was distorted by the fish-eye lens, curved and strange. But I could see her. Sarah was sitting on the floor. Why? Her back against the opposite wall, facing my door. She had her knees pulled up to her chest. She was writing something in a notebook. Why? She looked small. She looked broken. And for a second, the old instinct flared up. The instinct to open the door, to comfort her. Why? To tell her we could figure it out. But then I remembered the video. I remembered the demand letter. Why? I remembered the cousin's text about the safe bet. I stepped back from the door. I did not turn the lock. I did not make a sound. Why? I went back to the living room and sat in the dark, waiting for her to make her move. I knew this was the end game. She had run out of pawns. Now, why? She was going to try to flip the board. The hallway outside my apartment is carpeted in a generic, industrial gray. Why? The kind designed to hide stains and muffle footsteps. But it does not muffle crying. For 2 hours, I sat on my couch in the dark. Why? Listening to the muffled sounds of Sarah unraveling on the other side of the wood. My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins. Why? Sent me updates like a war correspondent. She is still there. The text read at 7:30. She is on the phone with someone shouting. Lie. Another came at 8:15. She is sitting on the floor writing in a notebook. Came at 8:40. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Why? The air in the apartment felt stale, recycled. I wanted to turn on the TV to drown out the silence. Why? But I was afraid she would hear the noise and know I was just sitting there, ignoring her. So I sat in the quiet. Why? Watching the strip of light at the bottom of the front door. I knew exactly what she was doing. It is a siege tactic. Why? When you cannot breach the walls, you starve the enemy out. You make their guilt so heavy that they open the gates themselves just to make it stop. Law, why? At 9 o'clock the sounds stopped. I heard the rustle of paper. I heard the scratch of something sliding against the floorboards. Why? A white envelope appeared in the gap beneath the door. It moved in jerks, pushed by a trembling hand, until it lay completely on my welcome mat. Then, lie. I heard the sound of her standing up. Her heels clicked on the tile of the entryway, then on the carpet, fading away toward the elevator. Lie. I waited 5 full minutes. I wanted to be sure she wasn't waiting around the corner. Then, I walked to the door and picked up the envelope. Why? It was heavy. My name was scrawled on the front in black marker. The handwriting was jagged, the letters sloping downward. It looked frantic. Why? I took it to the kitchen and turned on the under-cabinet lights. I opened it. There were 4 pages of lined notebook paper. Why? Covered front and back in tight, furious script. I poured a glass of water. My hands were shaking slightly. I sat down and began to read. Why? Page 1 was the love letter. It was a greatest hits compilation of our 4 years together. She wrote about the time we got lost in Italy. Why? She wrote about the dog we talked about getting. She wrote about how I was her soulmate, and how we were meant to be together. Why? It was designed to disarm me, to remind me of the good times, to make me feel the weight of what I was throwing away. I love you more than anything. Why? She wrote. We are a team. Teams do not break up over one bad night. I turned the page. Page 2 was the revisionist history. Why? This was where the gaslighting began in earnest. The tone shifted from romantic to defensive. You are blowing this out of proportion, she wrote. Why? I have talked to my friends, and they all agree you are overreacting. It was a bachelorette party. Everyone dances. Everyone drinks. Why? The guy with the money was just showing off, and I didn't know how to say no without being rude. I was being polite. Why? You are twisting this into something it isn't because you are insecure. I felt a flash of heat in my chest. Being polite. Why? That was her description of grinding on a stranger while he stuffed bills into her dress. She was framing her infidelity as a social grace. Why? Page 3 was the victim impact statement. My grandmother has cut me off, she wrote. The ink was smeared here, as if a teardrop had hit the page. Why? She won't take my calls. She changed her will. Do you know what that feels like? To have your own family turn on you because of a misunderstanding. Why? And my job, they moved me to inside sales. I am in a cubicle, Ron. I am making half of what I used to. I can't afford my car payments. Why? I can't afford my rent. Everyone has abandoned me. My mom is a mess. Jessica is the only one talking to me, and even she is tired of the drama. Why? It is not fair. I am losing everything. I read that paragraph twice. It is not fair. That was the core of her worldview. Why? It wasn't fair that actions had consequences. It wasn't fair that the safety net had holes in it. Then I reached page 4. Why? The handwriting changed here. It became larger, more erratic. The words were pressed hard into the paper. Why? Indented so deeply I could feel them on the reverse side. If you don't take me back, I don't know what I will do, she wrote. I have nothing left. Why? No money. No family. No career. You are the only thing I have. If you don't open this door and talk to me, why? I can't be responsible for what happens next. I can't live like this. I won't live like this. Please, Ron, save me. Why? I put the letter down on the counter. The kitchen was silent, but my head was screaming. Save me. It was the ultimate trump card. Why? The threat of self-harm. She was putting her life in my hands. She was telling me that if she hurt herself, the blood would be on my floorboards. Why? It was a hostage situation, and she was the hostage. For a moment, the old Ron surfaced. The Ron who wanted to be the provider, the protector. Why? My instinct was to grab my phone, call her, tell her to come back, tell her we would figure it out. I was terrified. Why? The thought of her hurting herself made my stomach turn over. But then I looked at the letter again. I looked at the progression. Love, denial. Blame, why? Threat, it was a script. It was a calculated escalation designed to trigger a specific response. She had tried charm. She had tried logic. Why? She had tried guilt. Now she was using fear. If I opened the door now, I would never be able to close it again. Why? I would be teaching her that this worked. I would be validating that she could hold herself hostage to get what she wanted. I took a deep breath. Why? I picked up my phone. I did not call Sarah. I scrolled through my blocked numbers list and found Linda. Sarah's mother. I unblocked her. Why? I pressed call. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when she answered. What do you want? Linda hissed. Her voice was thick. Why? Like she had been drinking or sleeping or both. Linda, this is Ron. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Go to hell, she said. Why? Sarah just left a letter at my apartment, I said, cutting over her. In it she threatened to hurt herself. Why? She said she cannot be responsible for what happens next. There was a silence on the other end of the line. A sharp intake of breath. What? Why? Linda said. Her tone shifted from anger to confusion. She is not here anymore, I continued, keeping my voice steady and clinical. Why? She left about 20 minutes ago. But I have the letter. I am telling you this so you can go check on her. She needs help, Linda. Professional help. Why? And she needs her family. You did this, Linda screamed. The sound distorted the speaker. You drove her to this. If she does anything. Why? It is your fault. Do you hear me? You have blood on your hands. I closed my eyes. Even in the face of a crisis, the blame shifted instantly to me. Why? I am notifying you because I am concerned for her safety, I said. I am not taking responsibility for her actions. Please go check on your daughter. Why? I am coming over there, she yelled. I am going to. I hung up. My hand was trembling again. I stared at the phone. I felt a wave of nausea. Why? Followed by a wave of intense, crushing guilt. What if she did it? What if this wasn't a manipulation? What if I woke up tomorrow and she was gone? Why? The doubt gnawed at me. But then I looked at the letter again. Page 2. I was being polite. No. This was not a person in a psychotic break. Why? This was a person who refused to lose. I took photos of all 4 pages of the letter. I saved them to the cloud. Why? Then I called the non-emergency police line. I want to report a welfare concern, I told the dispatcher. Why? My ex-fiancée left a note threatening self-harm. I have already contacted her mother, but I wanted to have it on record in case. Why? In case something happens. I gave them her address. I gave them her car description. The dispatcher was calm, professional. Why? She took down the details and gave me an incident number. When I hung up that time, the silence in the apartment felt different. Why? It wasn't empty anymore. It was fortified. I walked to the front door and engaged the deadbolt. I checked it twice. Why? I had done what a responsible human being does. I had alerted her family. I had alerted the authorities. I had ensured she would be checked on. Why? But I had not opened the door. I went back to the kitchen and looked at the letter one last time. I folded it up and put it back in the envelope. Why? I wrote the date and time on the front. Then I put it in my junk drawer, underneath a stack of takeout menace and spare batteries. Why? I sat down on the kitchen floor, leaning my back against the cabinets. I pulled my knees up to my chest. Why? Mirroring the position Sarah had been in outside my door. I felt incredibly sad. I mourned the girl I thought she was. Why? I mourned the life I thought we were going to have. But mostly, I felt a strange, cold clarity. She had played her final card. Why? She had threatened the unthinkable to force me back into line. And I had called her bluff. I looked at my phone. Why? Linda had texted me 3 times since I hung up. I did not read them. I blocked the number again. Then I blocked Sarah. It was over. Why? The umbilical cord of drama was cut. Whatever happened next, the tantrums, the fallout, why? The reality of her new life was happening in a universe I no longer inhabited. I stood up and poured the glass of water down the sink. Why? I turned off the kitchen lights. I walked into my bedroom and lay down on the bed. I didn't sleep, but for the first time in 3 weeks. Why? I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. It had dropped. And I was still standing. 3 weeks later, I stood in a jewelry store that smelled of polished glass and quiet desperation. The man behind the counter wore a lope in his eye. Why? Examining the diamond I had placed on the velvet tray. It was a beautiful ring. I had spent months saving for it, researching cuts and clarity. Why? Terrified of getting it wrong. Now, looking at it under the harsh halogen lights, it just looked like a rock. Why? We can offer you $4,200, the jeweler said, removing the loop. That is about 60% of the original value. Why? I did not haggle. I did not try to explain that it had barely been worn, or that it represented 4 years of my life. I just nodded. Deal, I said. Why? He cut the check. I walked out of the store and went straight to the bank. The money was not a fortune, but it was enough. Why? It covered the non-refundable deposit on the venue. It covered the photographer's cancellation fee. It covered the cost of the new locks. Why? It was a full reimbursement for the price of my freedom. I drove home with the windows down. The air felt different. It was crisp, autumnal. Why? For the first time in a month, I wasn't checking my rearview mirror. When I got to my apartment, I didn't feel the ghost of Sarah waiting for me. Why? I had spent the last weekend reclaiming the space. I cleaned it top to bottom. I scrubbed the baseboards. I moved the furniture. Why? The beige couch was now against the opposite wall, draped in a navy blue throw blanket I had bought for myself. Why? I took down the watercolor prints she had chosen for the hallway and left the walls bare. It didn't look like a magazine spread anymore. Why? It looked like a bachelor pad. It looked like me. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was a text from Emily. She is doing okay, Emily wrote. Why? My aunt has her in therapy. She is staying off social media. The family is still a mess, but she is safe. I felt a momentary flicker of relief. Why? The suicide threat had been a bluff, a final, desperate play for control. When it didn't work, the reality set in. She was alive. Why? She was facing the music. And she was no longer my problem. I did not reply to Emily. I deleted the thread. That door was closed. Why? I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat down on my reoriented couch. I had started seeing a therapist of my own last week. In our first session. Why? I spent 40 minutes waiting for her to tell me I had overreacted. I laid it all out. The video, the grandmother, the letter. She listened. Why? Nodding slowly. Then she said something that had stuck with me. You did not seek revenge, Ronald. You sought the truth. There is a difference. Why? Revenge is trying to hurt someone because you are hurting. Integrity is refusing to participate in a lie, even when the truth is painful. Integrity. Why? Eleanor had used that word too. I opened my laptop. I had one last ritual to perform before I could fully move on. Why? I opened the browser and went to the video hosting site where the clip had landed. It was still there. The internet never forgets. Why? The view count had climbed to 400,000. I watched the thumbnail for a second. Sarah's face was frozen in a pixelated laugh. Why? Blissfully unaware that her life was about to disintegrate. 400,000 people had seen it. Her colleagues. Her clients. Why? Her future partners. It was a digital scarlet letter that would follow her for years. Do I feel bad about that? Sometimes. Late at night. Why? When the silence gets too loud, I feel a pang of pity for her. No one deserves to be humiliated on a global scale. Why? But then I remember the cousin's text. The safe bet. The plan to coast. Why? I remember the look on her face when she told me I was boring for not wanting to watch her grind on strangers. She showed me who she was. Why? She showed me that she viewed our relationship not as a partnership, but as a financial strategy. Why? She showed me that her respect for me was non-existent. I closed the laptop. I did not bookmark the page. I am 29 years old. 6 weeks ago. Why? I was planning a wedding. I was worrying about floral arrangements and seating charts. I was preparing to merge my life with a woman I thought I knew. Why? Today, I am single. I am sitting in an apartment that is finally quiet. I am down a few $1,000s. Why? And I have a few emotional bruises that will take time to heal. But as I took a sip of my beer and looked out the window at the city skyline,
Why?
I realized something. I wasn't lonely. I wasn't scared. I felt safe. I had dodged a bullet. Actually, I hadn't just dodged it. Why? I had caught it in mid-air and disarmed it. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I washed the glass and put it in the drying rack. I turned off the lights, leaving the apartment bathed in the soft glow of the street lamps outside. I am going to be fine. Better than fine. Why? I am going to be free, and that is worth a lot more than $85,000. Peace.